The role of the cloud architect is undergoing significant changes in 2025. What does that mean for you and your enterprise using cloud computing? Let's talk about that. Welcome to the Cloud Computing Insider. This channel explores the ins and outs of cloud computing without an agenda or following into the narrative set by big tech marketing. We look at what works and what does not, the actual value of this technology in a balanced and information-forward way. If that interests you, please subscribe, like, and comment. I'm your host, David Linthicum, author, speaker, cloud and AI architect, top 10 AI and cloud computing influencer, B-list geek, and over-the-hill mountain biker. Let's get started. So this topic actually came from YouTube. They have in the YouTube studio, which I've been playing around with from time to time, they have a section called Inspiration. And what they do, probably AI, of course, look at what you guys want as an audience or what they think you want and topics to try. And this was a topic that was on top of the list that at least YouTube said you'd be very, very interested in. So we'll see if that's the case. But also this is a question I get a lot. People talk about the changing role of the architect. And obviously architects have been around for, decades. We've had enterprise architects and certainly architects around particular technology sets. Of course, cloud computing, of course, AI. But there's network architects, there's security architects, there's hardware infrastructure architects, cloud infrastructure architects. All those roles exist. But looking at the cloud architect role and where it's going this year in 2025, I think there's going to be some changes that we're going to see in 2025 and also which is going to carry over into 2026. So let's talk about them here. So first, we should talk about the changing landscape of cloud architecture. Ultimately, we were focused on infrastructure, and now we're focused more on innovation. So the role of cloud architect is evolving. It's moving beyond traditional infrastructure management role, into getting into application architecture, looking at the strategy of the business and aligning the technology to that strategy. We're also focused on security. Cloud architects are now critical in implementing robust security measures, especially data breaches, sometimes increasingly, very sophisticated stuff with the AI that's out there. And what occurred is we realized that cybersecurity wasn't something that we just bolt on, that it was something that was going to be systemic to the systems we're building or systemic to the architecture. So therefore, the cloud architects need to be up on cloud security and know how to build security systems into the infrastructure and into the applications. So really, if we're going to summarize, this is going beyond infrastructure. Architects are expected to play a critical role in developing innovative cloud-based solutions that leverage AI and other advanced technologies. And by the way, it's not only about AI, it's about all the new technologies that are going to be coming down the road and all the innovative technologies that we also have in our arsenal as well, serverless and container-based development, cloud-native application, things like that, when to use them and when not. So here's a chart illustrating the growth of cloud computing and the corresponding salary trends for cloud architects. Notice how the salaries are lagging behind cloud growth, and which is interesting. So what seems to be happening as well is the importance of a cloud architecture role is becoming more important and more strategic to the business. But the enterprises are not necessarily paying them, I think, what the architects deserve. And that's something I think that's going to have to be adjusted in 2025 and 2026. Hiring is a bit lagging now, but I think there's a 3% unemployment rate in the high-tech field. And I think that's going to command bigger salaries for cloud architects that are able to, take these organizations to the next level. So if you look at this chart, it illustrates cloud growth in terms of number of cloud architects in the workforce, which is also slightly lagging. So in other words, we have a demand for cloud architecture that's rising. Obviously, cloud computing's on a steady growth path. It's, flex sometimes, it slows down, it speeds up, whatever, but it's growing. But the number of cloud architects out there that are in the workforce isn't necessarily there to meet the demand. So there's a bit of illogical conclusions we can draw from this. In other words, if the demand for cloud architects is high and the supply is low, then the prices or the salaries that they pay cloud architects should start to go up. So this is interesting food for thought. If you're looking to get into this role, or you're in this role now, or you're in one of my classes or taking some of my training to get in this role, That's going to be an interesting perspective, because I think what's going to happen is prices for cloud architects, in other words, the salaries that they pay, is going to have to rise, because we just don't have enough of them to go around right now. And even with the training that's going on that I'm driving, and lots of other organizations are driving as well, I just don't see that changing. So next would be the rise of cloud native solutions. And I could put out air quotes for that, because that's going to mean different things to different people. But ultimately, I'm going to define it here as shifting to microservices. So cloud architects are now instrumental in designing and deploying cloud native applications using microservice architecture. So in other words, they're doing the application architecture for these systems. And I think that's a good thing to do. Sometimes microservices, and we talked about this on some shows in the past, are going to be overutilized and are not necessarily going to be an efficient way to do it. So the architect should get involved in figuring out the best fit. Other cloud native services, serverless computing, that's obviously can have a tremendous amount of advantages and also can be misapplied. So they must understand the benefits and challenges of serverless computing, be able to design and deploy applications effectively using serverless functions. And the big thing would be when to use it and when not to use it. I think serverless, by the way, is pretty old. It's almost 10 years old. I think it's over 10 years old. And so we know what the capabilities of a serverless system are. We also know the drawbacks. And it shouldn't be used in many cases. In some cases, it's going to be more convenient for the architect to leverage that, because it's able to allocate the resources as you need them, which is going to be, basically architecture on demand, or resources on demand. But in many cases, it's going to be more expensive. It's going to limit the capabilities of the application and also limits portability. So next would be, embracing DevOps. Cloud architects are expected to, collaborate seamlessly with DevOps teams, ensure smooth deployment and continuous delivery in cloud native solutions. So this is all about the development aspect of this. In other words, the idea where there's a demarcation line between the cloud architecture role and the developer role, or the DevOps team, or the people who put the applications together, and there's going to be a group of people who do that, is not necessarily going to be the case moving forward. So in the enterprise, in the cloud architecture gigs that I've seen, the best cloud architects are all about the DevOps processes and development processes, and understand how all that fits together. And they're working closely with the DevOps engineers to make sure that they have a tool chain and process that's going to replicate, greatness each and every time they build an application. At least that's the idea. So next would be the importance of data management. So data security and compliance is really something that cloud architects should pay attention to. Cloud architects are responsible for ensuring the security and the compliance of data stored and processed in the cloud-based systems that they are charged with designing, and also adhering to evolving regulations like GDPR and CCPA, and understanding what they are and making sure that we're remaining in compliance. Data analytics and insights, also an architect's role. Architects are increasingly involved in designing data pipelines and implementing analytics tools in the exact value to get the valuable insights from the data stored in the cloud. And obviously all of this is about AI now, but this isn't necessarily what AI and not AI. So your ability to see the data that we need to see to drive the business, and the ability to externalize that data in any number of ways, bound with AI or not bound with AI, that allows the decision makers within the organizations to make the core decisions. And next would be data governance and management. So cloud architects play a vital role in establishing data governance policies and assuring the efficient and secure management of cloud-based data resources. Data governance has always been something that I think many of the architects out there do not understand. And so they leave it to the database administrators, or if they're employing data scientists for doing AI stuff, the data scientists to implement governance. And that's not necessarily a best practice that's out there. So data governance should be systemic to the architecture. Therefore, the cloud architects need to pay attention to it. So what are the new skills you're going to need for 2025 and 2026? Well, technical proficiency is going to be a big thing. It's going to be mastering cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, along with proficiency in containerization technologies like Docker and Kubernetes. And that's going to be essential. I'm not saying in any stretch of the imagination that you get certified in every one of those technologies, because that's going to just get you too much into the weeds. You need to be focused on the strategy of this stuff, but understanding what they are, the roles that they play, the ability to explain the differences, the ability to bring up questions as people are moving toward these solutions to make sure the right boxes are being ticked and they're backing the right solution into the requirements of the business and not the other way around. Soft skills, strong communication, collaboration, and problem-solving skills are critical for working effectively with the diverse teams and stakeholders. I always tell my cloud architecture and AI architecture students this is a job about communications. 80-90% of it is going to be writing, speaking, communicating, dealing with different personalities. And those are the architects that are going to be successful. If you look at the architects that are making well over $1 million a year, they have those skills above everything else. In fact, I would say they're kind of lagging behind in understanding the technology as much, but I don't think that's important to them. They have people who work for them who are able to deal with the technology. And so keep that in mind, that this is a job about communication, and the better you're able to communicate, the better you're able to do this job. And by the way, if you're lacking in communication, go to meetups, join organizations that allow you to speak, just get out there and conversate, if that's a word, with other people out there so you get your communication skills honed. Also, continuous learning. Cloud architecture is a rapidly evolving field that requires architects to stay current with the latest technologies and trends. Obviously, if you're watching this YouTube channel, you're doing that. So in other words, we kind of keep up with what's hot and what's important to you and understanding the trends in technology. But, reading articles, and whether it's my InfoWorld blog or something else, keeping up with latest technologies by taking very quick LinkedIn Learning or Coursera courses or Pluralsight courses to keep up with what the technology is doing. I think all that's going to be very important. You have to have a thirst for knowledge in order to do very well at this job. So what's the future of cloud architecture in 2025, 2026 and beyond? Well, I think it's going to be hybrid and multi-cloud architectures are going to rule. So obviously everything is moving into heterogeneous-based architectures with certainly multiple cloud brands, but also private clouds and special purpose clouds and sovereign clouds and micro clouds, and all of those things are going to be part of the mix as well. And so cloud architects will need to navigate this complex hybrid and multi-cloud environment to optimize performance and cost, and the ability to understand the trade-offs in doing that. So cloud architecture is not just picking AWS or Microsoft or Google. You're going to lose big time if you do that. And we're seeing that those mistakes play out now. It's about picking the best of breed technology on whatever platform you can find it and putting it together. That's going to be your solution. It's going to be very different from the other solutions that are being deployed in other enterprises. So keep in mind that your requirements, your business issues are going to be unique to you, and the technology you pick shouldn't be limited by a particular brand or brand loyalty. That's what drives me nuts when everybody declares these strategic alliances with AWS, Microsoft, or Google, and they're just going to develop their systems on those platforms. And that means they're going to make bad mistakes in the cloud many times, because there's no way that a single cloud provider is going to be able to meet every requirement in an optimized way. And so that's going to mean you're leaving money on the table. Edge computing and IoT are still out there. They will play a role in designing and implementing cloud-based solutions for edge computing and the Internet of Things. So keep an eye on that. Sustainable cloud practices, obviously that's still going to be a thing. As sustainability grows, cloud architects will be responsible for developing eco-friendly and energy-efficient cloud infrastructure solutions. So the good thing here is if we consider cost efficiency, we're also getting to energy efficiency. So they're hand in hand. So obviously it's going to be the duty of cloud architects to create an architecture that brings the most value back to the business. And if they're able to do that well, then I think that they're going to have a sustainable architecture as well. They go hand in hand. They're coupled. Well, anyway, I hope that helped, and hope if you're moving into architecture that you consider these kind of changes that are coming down the line. If you're already in there, then you're adjusting your skill sets and adjusting your career to adapt to what's important now in 2025 and 2026. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out my other videos on this channel. Also check out my InfoWorld Cloud Computing blog, my 100+ LinkedIn Learning courses, and of course, my Generative AI Architecture course out on Go Cloud Careers. And finally, my latest book, An Insider's Guide to Cloud Computing. So until next week, stay very, very safe. Later.